Coalition has introduced a bill aimed at forcing the government to have the costs and benefits of its national broadband network tested by the Productivity Commission. The opposition says its case against the network was strengthened today with the release of an OECD review of Australia's economy that said the project carried substantial financial uncertainties. Opposition communications spokesman Malcolm Turnbull spoke earlier with political editor Chris Uhlmann, who began by asking if the crossbench MPs would back his bill.
Rob Oakeshott, as one crossbencher, has called for a cost-benefit analysis to be done on the NBN already. So he did that, some time ago. So I hope Rob will see his way clear to support this bill. It is a matter of growing concern right across Australia and across the industry. I mean, only today, the Alliance for Affordable Broadband, which is a group of leading telecommunications companies in Australia, have called on the independents to support the reference to the Productivity Commission. So, there's a lot of support across the board. We need to get this policy right, and the best way to do that is to do the analysis first, to do the analysis before you make the investment.
You say it's best if business does it in the end, if there's competition in the marketplace and it sorts itself out, but we hadn't seen that across the course of the last 12 years, had we?
Well, it's been patchy. I think that's the criticism. I mean, but let's focus on the objective. What we want to achieve is universally available, affordable broadband. Now, that's the objective. Now, let me just emphasise something about affordability. We often talk about the digital divide in Australia. The digital divide is marked by income. Only 43% of households on an income of $40,000 or less have access to the internet at home, whereas the minute you move above that, the percentage increases rapidly until you get to 94 or 5% when it's over $120,000 a year. Now, what the government is establishing is a massively overcapitalised government telecoms monopoly, which is going to increase internet access charges in real terms every year for 10 years, according to their own implementation study. So how is that going to make the internet more affordable?
And the government would say that it is going to be affordable and it's going to be extended to all Australians, and those in the regions will pay the same amount of money as those in capital cities.
But that's what they say. But the fact is that right now the internet access is unaffordable for many Australians on low incomes, and there is nothing in the NBN plan to indicate that they're going to reduce prices. In fact, what they've said is that they're going to increase prices in real terms. And of course, if you've got $43 billion invested, you're going to try and earn some sort of return on it. And if it's a government monopoly, and you've made sure you've eliminated Telstra as a competitor with their HFC network, and you've done a deal to get Optus out of the way, and you've got penalties to stop other people competing with you, then you've got no barrier to ratcheting up your prices.
Say you got your Productivity Commission inquiry and it came back and it said, yeah, this is a good idea, would you support it?
Oh, look, as a matter of principle,
don't think that's ever going to happen.
No, because as a matter of principle, you'd never write a blank cheque. But as I've said before, if the Productivity Commission were to recommend the NBN, that would be immensely persuasive, and I think that opposition to it would, perhaps not vanish entirely, but largely disappear. So, if the government really wanted to make a way clear for this, they would do as we've recommended, and indeed as the OECD recommended yesterday. I mean, in their report, they talk about how to improve the infrastructure investment in Australia, and they recommend that there be, for infrastructure projects, particularly major ones, and there's none bigger than this, independent cost-benefit analyses that are published. Well, now, why isn't the government taking up that advice?
When will we see your alternative?
Well, I've outlined it. I mean, I think it's pretty clear what you need to do. I can run through it quickly. I support the separation of Telstra's customer access network from the retail business. That should be separated in such a way that it is a regulated utility and is guaranteed a secure pricing regime which delivers a reasonable return on its capital asset and, of course, in particular, on capital expenditure as they build up and improve and extend their network. That's the model used with other utilities. An entity like that would be given a mandate to ensure that all Australia had access to broadband on an affordable basis. And you can say, what is the definition of broadband? I'd say at least 12 megabits per second, but obviously faster if there's a market for it. Now, all of that can be accomplished for a tiny, tiny fraction of the cost to the taxpayer of the NBN. Yes, you would need taxpayer subsidy, and we've agreed to do that for remote and regional areas. You would need that because it's not economic to do broadband right across those regions because of distance. But that's well understood. But you wouldn't need to cut a cheque for $43 billion.
All right, two last things. On the structural separation of Telstra, you got your party over the line on that. You've got some amendments to the government's bill. If you don't get those amendments up, will you oppose the government's bill?
Well, what we'll do, what we've said is if we get all of our amendments up, we'll vote for it. If we get none of them up, we'll vote against it. If we get something in the middle, we'll think very carefully about it. But if the government wanted to do one thing that would engender support for this process and generate some confidence and goodwill, it would be to make that reference to the Productivity Commission. I mean, how absurd is it that they are sending off the question of carbon pricing to the Productivity Commission, and everyone says that's a sensible idea. The Productivity Commission are well able to look at all the merits and demerits of different approaches, and yet they're not prepared to send the largest infrastructure investment in our country's history to the Productivity Commission, even though this government has repeatedly said that you shouldn't undertake infrastructure investment without a rigorous cost-benefit analysis.
Opposition communication spokesman Malcolm Turnbull talking there to our political editor, Chris Hillman. Well, to sport now.